Okay, so get this. We're going deep today.
Yeah.
Deep diving into mystery and symbols.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Jung's Red Book.
Okay.
Ever heard of it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've heard little bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's this legendary thing. Part mystical text, part psychology masterpiece.
Right.
And it was hidden from the world for decades.
Yeah, like some kind of secret knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the big secret?
Yeah.
So to get it, we have to start with Jung.
Okay.
Now, we know he was a pioneer in psychology, but this book, this goes way beyond therapy, right?
Right.
He was exploring the deepest parts of the human mind, the unconscious.
Yeah, he was really interested in that.
What was he even trying to do?
Yeah.
Diving into this uncharted territory.
Well, he was convinced that the unconscious holds these incredibly powerful images and symbols and patterns
Oh, wow.
that shape who we are.
Okay.
And he wasn't just interested in treating mental illness.
Okay.
He wanted to map this hidden world.
And that's where the Red Book comes in. His own personal journey into the depths
Of his unconscious, yeah.
of his unconscious.
Keep in mind, this was a turbulent time for Jung.
Okay.
He had just split from Freud,
Right.
which pushed him to develop his own ideas about psychology.
Yeah.
And they were often controversial.
Oh, really?
The Red Book became a sort of testing ground for these new theories.
So it's the early 1900s.
Yes.
Jung is going through this intense period.
Yeah?
And he starts filling this massive red leather-bound book with his experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Strange creatures, mystical symbols, and incredibly detailed mandalas.
It's an amazing book, just visual.
I can imagine.
Beautiful.
So this wasn't just casual journaling.
Absolutely not.
Oh.
This was very methodical.
Okay.
A deliberate attempt to map the unconscious mind,
Wow.
which at the time was radical,
Oh, I bet.
even dangerous.
No wonder he kept it hidden for decades.
Right.
He was probably afraid people would think he was crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it at the time.
Yeah.
Psychology was still in its infancy,
Right.
and he was really pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable exploration of the mind.
Yeah, and you mentioned the mandalas.
Yes.
Those are pretty wild, visually.
They are.
What's their significance in the book?
For Jung, mandalas represented wholeness,
Yeah.
the process of becoming a complete self.
Huh.
Piecing together a puzzle, right?
Uh,
But the puzzle is your own psyche.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Yeah, it's a nice image.
So we've got this mysterious book
Mm-hmm.
filled with strange images
Uh,
and written by a psychologist venturing into uncharted territory.
that's right.
But you said it isn't just a diary.
It's not.
So what makes it different?
Jung wasn't just passively recording his thoughts and dreams.
Okay.
He was using a technique called active imagination.
Active imagination.
Imagine having to face your deepest fears and desires head on.
Ooh, that's scary.
That's what Jung did
Oh,
in the Red Book.
wow.
He called it a confrontation with the unconscious.
Confrontation with the unconscious.
It led him to some pretty groundbreaking discoveries.
So tell me more about this active imagination technique, because it sounds intense.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like entering a waking dream state where you can interact with figures and symbols that arise from your unconscious.
Okay.
Jung meticulously documented his encounters with these inner figures.
So he was talking to them.
Yeah, well, he was interacting with them.
Okay.
Two of the most important were Philemon and Salome. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine you could have a conversation with the different parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Your fears, your desires, your wisdom.
Right.
That's essentially what Jung was doing.
Wow.
He believed that by engaging with these figures, he could understand the deeper workings of his own mind, and in turn, the human mind in general.
So who are Philemon and Salome?
Okay, well, Philemon was like this wise old man, a mentor figure who often guided Jung during his explorations.
Yeah.
He represented a sort of inner wisdom, a connection to something beyond Jung's personal ego.
Nope.
Salome, on the other hand, represents a more complex, even challenging aspect of the psyche.
Oh. Yeah.
She embodies what Jung called the anima, the feminine archetype.
Okay.
And her presence forced Jung to confront aspects of himself that he might have otherwise ignored or suppressed.
So these aren't literal figures,
No.
but more like symbolic representations of different parts of his personality.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that makes the Red Book so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a raw, unfiltered look at Jung's own struggles and triumphs as he grapples with these powerful inner forces.
It's like getting a peek behind the curtain.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was literally drawing and writing about his encounters with these figures.
Wow.
And the result is both visually stunning and psychologically insightful.
And you're saying these techniques are still relevant today?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Therapists use techniques like active imagination to help their clients access and process their unconscious material.
Huh.
It's like giving people the tools to explore their own inner landscapes
Right.
and to gain a deeper understanding of who they are.
So the Red Book,
Mm-hmm.
more than just a historical artifact,
Yeah, much more than that.
it offers insights and techniques that are still relevant for anyone who wants to understand themselves better.
Precisely.
Wow.
Jung's journey into the unconscious wasn't just about personal discovery.
Oh, wait.
It was about understanding the universal patterns and archetypes
Yeah.
that shape the human experience.
Okay.
Something that we can all relate to, even if we've never studied psychology.
So we've talked about the context
Right.
and the process,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the content?
Okay.
What are some of the key themes that emerge from Jung's exploration in the Red Book?
All right.
I'm especially curious about this idea of death and rebirth that keeps popping up.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And it sounds more dramatic than it is.
Okay.
He didn't mean literal death.
Right.
He saw it as a metaphor for transformation. Think about it like decluttering your house,
Well,
but for your mind.
right.
That's what Jung was doing with active imagination,
Hmm.
getting rid of mental baggage and making space for new growth.
So like a psychological makeover.
Yes, exactly.
Out with the old, in with the new.
That's a good way to put it.
And it ties into another theme you mentioned,
Yeah.
the use of myth and symbolism.
Right.
You said Jung saw mandalas as symbols of the self,
Mm-hmm.
but he also uses all sorts of mythological figures and stories throughout the book.
He does.
What was he trying to accomplish with that?
Jung believed that myths aren't just ancient stories.
Okay.
They're expressions of universal truths about the human experience.
Okay.
Think about the hero in your favorite story.
Okay.
That's an archetype,
Okay.
a universal pattern in the human experience.
So he's using these ancient stories to make sense of his own internal world.
Yeah, he saw those same patterns reflected in his own unconscious. And it's not just him. Those myths and symbols continue to resonate with us today.
Yeah.
We see them in movies, books, even in our dreams.
That's true.
They tap into something deep within us.
Yeah.
Something that connects us to a shared human experience that goes beyond our individual lives.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right.
And it makes you wonder how much of our individuality is actually shaped by these universal patterns.
Good question.
This is making me rethink my own dreams.
I bet.
You mentioned another theme, dialogue with the soul.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty mystical.
it does, right.
Yeah, what did he mean by that?
Jung believed that the soul isn't necessarily a religious concept.
Okay.
It's the deepest part of ourselves,
Okay.
the source of our creativity, intuition, and our connection to something greater than ourselves.
So it's more about self-awareness.
Yes.
About tuning into that inner voice that often gets drowned out by the noise of everyday life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a relationship with that inner voice, learning to listen to its guidance, and integrating it into our conscious lives.
And that's something we can all benefit from.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with information and external stimuli.
Yeah, for sure.
Taking the time to listen to that inner voice can be incredibly grounding.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy, is it?
It certainly isn't. The
Yeah.
Red Book isn't a light read.
Okay.
It's a dense, complex work that requires a lot of effort from the reader,
Yeah, I can imagine.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Okay.
It's a reminder of the importance of introspection,
Hmm.
of taking the time to explore our inner world and connect with the deeper meaning and purpose of our lives.
Right.
And in a world that's constantly demanding our attention, that's a message we all need to hear.
It's like he's giving us a map,
Yeah.
not just to his own unconscious, but to our own potential for self-discovery.
Exactly.
This is definitely making me want to explore those striking images and symbolism for myself.
You should.
You know, I'm also curious about...
Oh, it's definitely a journey worth taking, and the Red Book can be a powerful guide.
Yeah.
It's not just about psychology.
Right.
It's about exploring the depths of human experience
Hmm.
in all its messy glory.
Yeah, it's making me think about other great works of literature
Okay.
that deal with these kinds of journeys of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Dante's Divine Comedy, for example,
Yeah.
with its descent into the underworld.
Right.
It's like both Danke and Jung were exploring the same territory,
That's a great comparison.
just using different maps.
Yeah. And just like Dante had Virgil as his guide through hell,
Right.
Jung had figures like Philemon to help him navigate the complexities of the unconscious.
Right, to help guide him.
Both of them were wrestling with big questions, right?
Yeah.
Exploring those dark and shadowy parts of the human soul.
And ultimately,
Yeah,
both works offer a vision of hope.
they do.
Right.
Yeah.
The possibility of emerging from the darkness transformed. It's like they're saying, hey, even in the darkest depths, there's the potential for growth and renewal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another visionary artist,
Okay.
William Blake.
Okay.
His work is also full of mystical imagery and symbolism,
Okay.
much like the Red Book.
Right.
Blake was also fascinated by the power of imagination, the idea that we can access profound truths through our inner world.
So Jung is part of this larger tradition
Yes.
of artists and thinkers who've dared to look beyond the surface to explore the hidden depths of the human psyche.
Absolutely. It's like they're all pointing us inward, saying the real adventure is within.
Yeah.
And Jung really took that to heart.
Okay.
The Red Book is like his travel log, a record of his adventures in the inner world.
I like that.
He's not just telling us what he found,
Right.
he's inviting us to follow in his footsteps.
It's like he's saying, hey, this is what I discovered on my journey. Now go explore your own inner world and see what you find. It's a call to adventure.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
A challenge to confront our own shadows and embrace the fullness of who we are.
And that's a challenge we can all benefit from.
Wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
Mm.
But it's not always easy, is it?
No, it's not.
Confronting our shadows. I mean,
Right.
it can be scary,
It can be.
even painful at times.
But it's also incredibly liberating. You know, the shadow is just a part of us after all. It's
Right.
not something to be feared or rejected,
Okay.
but understood and integrated.
So how do we do that?
Okay.
How do we integrate those parts of ourselves that we might be ashamed of or afraid to acknowledge?
Well, it starts with awareness and recognizing that we all have a shadow,
Right.
that it's a natural part of being human,
Right.
and then creating space for those shadow aspects to emerge,
Right.
to be seen and heard.
And is that where techniques like active imagination come in?
Exactly. Active imagination can be a powerful tool for exploring the shadow,
Okay.
but it's not the only way. We can also explore these themes through art, journaling, dream work,
Right.
even just spending time in nature
Yeah.
and paying attention to what arises within us.
So it's about being curious about those parts of ourselves that we might normally try to hide or suppress.
Precisely. And remember, the shadow isn't all bad.
Oh.
It also contains our potential, our creativity, our deepest desires.
So it's not about getting rid of the shadow,
No,
but about understanding it and integrating it into our whole selves.
that's the key. And it's not just important for personal growth.
Okay.
Jung believed that shadow work is essential for creating a more just and harmonious society as well.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
What does the shadow have to do with society?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
When we deny or repress our own shadow, we tend to project it onto others.
Oh, okay.
We see in them the very qualities that we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves.
Right.
And that can lead to all sorts of problems.
Okay.
Prejudice, conflict, even violence.
So Jung is saying that if we want to create a better world,
Yeah.
we need to start by looking within ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our own shadow and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge,
Yeah.
both individually and collectively.
It's like that saying, you can't change the world until you change yourself.
Yeah.
But it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected.
Yeah.
That we're all part of the same web of life.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the Red Book.
Okay.
Jung's journey into the unconscious wasn't just about understanding himself.
Right.
It was about understanding the human condition, the archetypal patterns that connect us all.
So the Red Book is not just a personal journey,
Yeah,
but a guidebook for navigating the complexities of the human experience as a whole.
that's a great way to put it. It's a map to the inner world,
Right.
a guide to understanding the forces that shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And by understanding those forces, we can start to make more conscious choices in our lives.
And create a more conscious world.
Exactly.
It's a pretty powerful idea.
Yeah.
You know, listening to you talk about the Red Book, I'm struck by your passion for this work.
Oh, thanks.
What drew you to it in the first place?
Well, for me, the Red Book was a revelation.
Okay.
It was like stumbling upon a hidden treasure,
Hmm.
a map to a world I never knew existed.
Wow.
I was fascinated by Jung's willingness to explore the depths of the human psyche, to confront the darkness and the light,
All right.
and to embrace the mystery and complexity of it all.
It sounds like you really connected with Jung's approach to psychology,
I did.
his emphasis on the unconscious and the power of symbolism.
Absolutely. And I was also drawn to the fact that he wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to share his own struggles and doubts.
Right.
Made him seem more human,
Yeah.
more relatable.
It's like he's saying, hey, I'm just a guy trying to figure things out just like you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the Red Book so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just a theoretical treatise. It's a personal journey,
Right.
a record of one man's attempt to grapple with the meaning of life and the nature of the human soul.
And in doing so, he offers us a glimpse into our own potential for growth and transformation.
Yes.
It's a reminder that the journey of self-discovery is never-ending,
Yeah.
that there's always more to learn and explore within ourselves.
And that's what keeps me coming back to the Red Book.
Yeah.
It's a constant source of inspiration and challenge.
You know, we've talked a lot about the symbolism in the Red Book,
We have.
and it makes me think about the idea of alchemy,
Okay.
the ancient practice of transforming base metals into gold.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Alchemy wasn't just about literal transformation.
Right.
It was also about a spiritual and psychological transformation.
Okay.
It was about taking those raw, unformed aspects of ourselves,
Right.
those base metals,
Okay.
and refining them through a process of heat and pressure.
So you're saying Jung saw the unconscious as a kind of alchemical crucible.
Exactly. It's a place where we can confront our shadows, our fears and doubts,
Right.
and work with them to create something new, something more whole and integrated.
It's like taking those base metals of our psyche and turning them into the gold of self-realization.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's a reminder that we all have the potential for transformation.
Right.
That even in the darkest parts of ourselves, there's something precious waiting to be discovered.
You've mentioned that the Red Book is filled with vivid imagery.
Yes, it is.
I'm curious, what are some of the images that have stuck with you the most?
Well, the mandalas, of course, they're
Yeah.
so intricate and symbolic,
Yeah.
representing that process of individuation, of becoming a whole self. But there are also these fantastical creatures, these strange and unsettling figures that Jung encountered in his active imaginations.
What do you make of those creatures?
Mm.
What do you think they represent?
I think they represent those aspects of ourselves
Okay.
that we might normally try to avoid or deny, the shadow sides, the fears, the impulses that we might deem unacceptable.
So by bringing them to life in his imagery,
Yes.
Jung was essentially confronting those parts of himself.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, hey, even the most monstrous parts of ourselves deserve to be seen and acknowledged.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're all complex creatures.
Right.
That we all have light and shadow within us.
And that embracing the fullness of who we are is the key to true transformation.
Absolutely. You know, listening to you talk about the Red Book, it strikes me that it's not just a book about Jung's personal journey,
Yeah.
but a guidebook for navigating the complexities of the human experience as a whole.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a map to the inner world,
Right.
a guide to understanding the archetypes and symbols that shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
And by understanding these patterns, we can gain greater self-awareness
Yes,
and make more conscious choices in our lives.
exactly. It's about becoming more conscious of the forces at play within us and around us.
And that consciousness is essential for personal growth and for creating a more just and harmonious world.
Absolutely. And that's the enduring legacy of the Red Book. It reminds us that the journey of self-discovery is not just a personal endeavor,
Right.
but a collective one.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness,
Yes.
our shared humanity, and working together to create a better future.
And that's a vision worth striving for.
One of the things that fascinates me about the Red Book is how Jung managed to capture the essence of the unconscious
Oh, yeah.
in such vivid and evocative imagery.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like he's giving us a visual representation of the inner world.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that makes the Red Book so unique.
Right.
It's not just a text, it's a work of art.
And those images, those mandalas, those fantastical creatures, they really stick with you.
They do. They tap into something deep within us, something primal and archetypal.
It's like he's giving us a glimpse into the collective unconscious.
Exactly.
That vast reservoir of images and symbols that we all share.
And that's why the Red Book has resonated with so many people,
Yep.
even those who aren't familiar with Jungian psychology.
Right.
It speaks a language that transcends words.
Yeah.
A language of symbols and images that speaks directly to the soul.
It's like a dream come to life.
It is.
A window into the hidden depths of the human psyche.
And that's a window worth looking through.
Okay, so we've talked about how the Red Book can help us understand ourselves and our place in the world.
Right.
But let's bring it back to our listeners for a moment.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in exploring these ideas further? Where should they start?
Well, I would definitely recommend reading the Red Book itself.
Okay.
It's a challenging book,
Right.
but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It's a journey in itself, and it's best experienced firsthand.
And what if someone is intimidated by the sheer size and complexity of the book?
Yeah, that's understandable. It's not an easy read.
Right.
There are some great introductory texts available
Okay.
that provide an overview of Jungian psychology and the Red Book specifically.
Okay.
And they can be a good starting point for those who want to dip their toes in before diving into the deep end.
And what about engaging with these ideas in a more experiential way?
Well, there are many workshops and retreats that offer opportunities to explore Jungian concepts
Okay.
through art, journaling, dream work, and other creative modalities.
Right.
It's a way to bring these ideas to life, to experience them in your own body and psyche.
So there are many different paths into this world,
Yeah,
depending on someone's interests and learning style.
exactly. The important thing is to find what resonates with you and to approach it with an open mind and a spirit of curiosity.
And to remember that the journey of self-discovery is a lifelong process.
Absolutely. It's a journey worth taking no matter where you start.
I love that. And speaking of journeys, I think it's time for us to wrap up this part of our deep dive into the Red Book.
Sounds good to me. But before we do, I have one question for you.
Okay.
What's been the most surprising thing you've learned about the Red Book today?
Honestly, I think the thing that surprised me the most is how relevant it still feels today.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear about a book that was written over 100 years ago, you might expect it to feel dated or irrelevant,
Right.
but the Red Book feels incredibly timely.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like Jung was grappling with the same issues that we're still facing today. The search for meaning, the need for connection, the challenge of integrating our shadow sides.
I completely agree. It's a timeless work,
Yeah.
and it speaks to something deep within us, something that transcends time and culture.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're all on this journey together, that we're all connected,
Yes.
and that we all have the potential for growth and transformation.
Beautifully said. And it's a journey worth celebrating.
You know, I'm also struck by the fact that Jung hid this book away for so long, worried about how the world would react.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he knew it was too much for people back then.
It's true. Sharing something so personal, so raw and vulnerable takes incredible courage.
Right, especially when you consider the stigma
Yeah,
surrounding mental health at the time.
absolutely.
Makes you wonder what he would think of the world's reaction now.
Right.
Here he was hiding this work, worried about being judged or
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
And now over a century later,
I know, right?
people all over the world
Yeah.
are finding inspiration in its pages.
It's amazing. It's a testament to the enduring power of his ideas.
Right.
He was exploring these universal themes.
Yeah.
The search for meaning, the struggle with our shadow selves, the longing for wholeness.
Right.
And those themes resonate just as strongly today.
It makes you realize that even though he was writing from his own personal experience, he was tapping into something much larger, something that connects us all.
Exactly. And by sharing his journey, he's given us all a gift. He's opened a door into the depths of the human psyche
Right.
and invited us to explore those realms for ourselves.
It's like he's saying, don't be afraid to look within, to confront your shadows, to embrace the fullness of who you are. Easier said than done, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a lifelong process,
Yeah.
this journey of self-discovery. But the Red Book can be a valuable companion along the way.
Like having a wise old sage whispering in your ear,
Yeah.
guiding you through the twists and turns of your own inner landscape.
Yeah, I like that image.
Speaking of wise old sages,
Yes.
if you could have a conversation with one of the figures from Jung's Red Book, who would you choose?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
There are so many fascinating characters to choose from.
Yeah.
But I think I'd have to go with Philemon.
Phil.
Yeah.
Okay, why him?
Well, he represents that wise, guiding aspect of the unconscious,
Yeah.
the inner mentor.
Okay, so what would you ask him?
I'd be curious to hear his perspective on the world today. What would he say about the challenges we're facing as a society?
Right.
What wisdom would he offer to help us navigate these turbulent times?
Interesting.
I bet he'd have some fascinating insights.
I bet he would.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe by exploring our own inner worlds, by listening to those whispers of wisdom from the unconscious,
Yeah.
we might just find the answers we're seeking.
That's the beauty of the journey, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
always unfolding, always revealing new insights and possibilities.
Exactly. And it's a journey that's open to all of us,
Yeah.
whether we've read the Red Book or not.
Right. We're all explorers of the inner world,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So to our listeners,
Yes.
I encourage you to embrace the mystery,
Yeah.
explore your own inner landscapes,
Mm-hmm.
and see where the journey takes you.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Who knows? Maybe you'll even encounter your own Philemon along the way.
I love that.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up our deep dive into Jung's Red Book. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes. Thanks for listening, everyone.
It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine.